Hi everyone, we are the Board Game Specialists. I'm Carla,
And I'm Melanie.
and today we're going to talk about the top 2021 games that we have played. But before we do that, we usually talk about some of the games we've been playing. Melanie, what have you been playing?
Well, I finally made it over to the Wizard's Loft in Red Deer, which is a fairly new board game store, I think, but it's amazing. They've got two levels. The main level is like all tables, and there's some games to buy down there, and they have their library that you can play, and then you go on the top one, and it's a fairly small space on the second level, but they've got so many games, amazing prices, and I went a little crazy, and we've played some of those. So, and this was just yesterday, so I played Super Mega Luckybox, which is a flip and write game, and it's all, dry erase markers, so you write directly on the cards, and it feels a little bit like bingo. So you have three cards that have different numbers on there, and then you'll flip a card, and it'll be like a 3, okay, so you then cross off a 3. And when you get a line, you get whatever it gives you as a bonus at the end of that line. So it could be another number that you get to cross off, so you get to cross off an extra number, or it could be a moon, or it could be a lightning bolt, or it could be a question mark where you get to cross off a number of whatever you want. And you're doing this, and then every time you fill a card, you put it aside, and you're going to score that. And if it's a star, then you get to mark that you've got a star, and then that's going to give you so many points. And the more stars you get in one round, the more they're going to be worth. So you're trying to get stuff so that it all happens on the same round if you can. And then the cards that gets complete are worth more at the beginning of the game than in the later rounds. But it's just a really neat gamers bingo, basically.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's really fun. So we played that one. I also got Draftosaurus. And this is a simple, quick game, and it feels like a roll and write, but instead of marking down what you're going to do, you actually draw these little meeple dinosaurs, and you place them in your little dinosaur zoo. And depending on the combinations that you create and what you put where, you're going to score all of that. So it has that roll and write feel almost, but you don't actually write anything. You just place these dinosaurs, and it's a dinosaur drafting game. And then that was a lot of fun. So you get 6 dinosaurs, you plus 1, somebody rolls a dice, and it gives you kind of a limitation of where your next dinosaur is going to be able to go. But then when you place that dinosaur, all the dinosaur you have in your hand goes to the next player, and you get the next batch of dinosaurs, and then you place this next one, and so neat. And it's just a quick game, but it was a lot of fun. We played Girating Hamsters. That's our staple in our household because we like to hate ourselves, apparently. This is just a frustrating game. And you're trying to collect these hamsters, and their artwork is hilarious. And some hamsters will have different abilities. You have Hollywood hamster. If you have 2 of them, you can play an extra card. But they have these chaos cards that'll come up. And poor Lily yesterday, because twice the chaos card came up when she was at 15 hamsters. If you reach 16, you win. So she's 1 hamster away from winning, and the hurricane card came out, and basically takes everybody's cards, shuffles it all up, and then distributes it evenly between everybody. So even though she had a huge lead, then all of a sudden we're all equal, and we all have different group of hamsters. And this is one we play often. We hadn't played it in a while, but this is probably my most played game in my collection, Girating Hamster. And then we played Gizmos, which is a neat deck, or not deck, it's an engine building game with marbles. And you're collecting these marbles at the energy. That's what you can spend. And there's this little kind of this marble distributor kind of gadget thing, and you pick from the bottom, and then more marbles falls through, and just the different cards that you get and how they're going to interact with each other. And then you can make it so I'm going to pick a blue, which allows me to pick one from in there, but it also allows me to pick an extra one from the display. And then because it kind of creates this unraveling thing where you activate so many different things with the one action because of the way you've built your engine. And that was Gizmos. And then we played Zombie Dice just because We can. And then actually it was because Patrick was at a party and I was supposed to go pick him up at midnight, but I didn't realize that until after I took my nighttime medicine because I'm fighting a cold. So I'm falling asleep. So we're playing all this game trying to stay awake. So, and then zombie dice. And zombie dice is neat. You pull 3 dice and you roll, and there's a green die, a red die, and an orange dice. And depending on the dice you have, what the ratio is of shotgun to brains, and you're trying to get as many brains as you can without rolling 3 shotgun, because then you bust, you went too far. So yeah, and then we played zombie dice. So it was and this was all last night, like a nice little game evening. Mostly just me, Lee, and Lily, so it was a lot of fun. How about you? What did you play this last week?
Some of the games I've played, also played Super Mega Luckybox. We play that quite often. Such a good game. Also played Rummy Kubb, which is just a simple rummy game with tiles that you will either put out runs or the same number, like 3, 4 of a kind. But the neat thing is you can manipulate the whole board. So if you have, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you could split that up, take the 4 out of the middle, use it for yours. It's just a really quick back and forth game that we all seem to love. The family, one of my gamer buddies, we play it at the end of the night just to kind of relax a bit. Such a fun game. Also played Schotten Totten with John.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we like that one. It's the 2-player game where you have in front of you these little, like, the pieces of wall, basically. And I think there's about 9 or 10 of them. And you get a hand of cards, and you're just playing kind of poker hands. So you're either trying to play, like, 3 of a kind, or you're trying to play a run in front of you in front of one of these little walls, and you're only trying to beat his cards that are in the other side of the wall. So as soon as I have, say, 3 3s in front of mine, all he needs to do is either have 4 4s, or if he has a color run, which is a run of all the same color, that will beat it. So as soon as he can beat it, he will get to take that wall. If I, on the other hand, play something where I know he cannot beat it, I may have to show him a card that proves it, I will take that wall. And as soon as you can build 3 walls next to each other, or like have them on your side as one, you've won the game, or you just have to have 5 all like separate on your board. It's fun. It's a really quick game that we usually play 3, 4 games in a row. Also played Project L, which is a little puzzle polyomino game. I had kickstarted this one, and it's such a nice little production. The little tiles are these acrylic little polyomino shapes, and they're so satisfying to play on your little player boards. Well, it's not a player board. You get these cards that you will take as one of your actions, and you try to fill it up with the little polyomino shapes, and as soon as you fill it up, you put that card aside, and at the bottom it will give you a new shape, so you'll get to keep that shape as well as all the ones you used to play on that card. And you just keep going, using your actions, trying to fill out as many cards as you possibly can, trying to get the right pieces that will also help you for later turns for bigger cards. It's such a relaxing zen-like puzzle game that we love to play. The last one that I've played it's really interesting. It's a little 2-player deck building game. It's called Crave. It's one person is the vampires and the other person is the vampire hunter. Now, have you heard of this?
No.
I think you will like it because it's they say it's like Star Realms, only just themed this way. So you are basically trying to kill the other person. You start with 70 health each, and you'll play out your 5 cards, and you can you can always buy cards from the market. So you have this public market, and you each have your own private market of cards. So you can choose which market to buy from. Those cards will go in your discard unless you have a certain card that allows you to put it right into your hand right away. And you're basically just trying to decrease their health. So you're attacking them, trying to lose their health. And you have all these little blocks that you can put up that they'll have to attack before they can attack your health. I've never played Star Realm, so I don't know how much alike it is. But it's really neat. And these are like hipster vampires. The art is so neat on them. They're big tarot-sized cards. And fun. The one thing that's neat with the vampires, because the human or the vampire hunters, there's some cards that will help them increase their health, whereas the vampires, they have some of these cards that are called drain. So when they attack you, that attack will also increase their health because they're draining your blood.
Right.
But it's really neat. The art is awesome on it. Yeah, you'll have to try this one. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, sounds like something I'd be into for sure.
Yeah.
That one sounds neat.
So that's what I've been playing. Let's start with our number 9, 2021 games. What is your number 9?
So my number 9 is Tiny Epic Pirates by Scott Alms and published by Gameland Games. So at first, I bought Tiny Epic Kingdom was my first Tiny Epic game that I had ever bought, and I was so impressed with it. And I started buying it because at the time I was limited in space. I was allowed one closet for board games. So, and Tiny Epic series has very small box, but the way that the games is built, like the board is built of all these different tiles that you put out, and then it has a big game feel in a tiny box. And it seems like every year they come up with a new one. So this was the 2021 one, and it was Tiny Epic Pirates, and it was so neat. It plays a lot like Pirates of the Caribbean. You've got these two merchant ships that go from corner to corner, and they go back and forth. And they carry goods, so they have these little cubes on them that they'll carry back and forth. And you'll try to steal their merchandise so that you can kind of get that as contraband and change it up for gold. And you're trying to get gold so that you can bury treasures. And the first player to bury, I don't know if it's like 3 treasures, is the winner. But you also have the royal guard that's going around, and you're trying to hide from them or stay away from them as well. And this is all a rondelle game. So you're going around this rondelle that'll kind of indicate which action you can do. And you'll bring in different crew members, and depending on the actions that you do, maybe they'll give you different benefits from doing a certain action. And you have your little crew members, and you can assign them in different spots that will do kind of give you extra abilities as well. It's so neat. And then the dice with them, because when you were battling and doing the stuff as well, I got the upgraded skull dice that looks so cool. So each dice kind of looks like a face of a skull, and it's such a neat shape dice. And then you have the little metal coins that keeps track of your gold, and you're trying to build up your gold and then bury it, so then it resets it to 0, and you're going around trying to rebuild it again. It's such a neat game, very thematic. My friend had her copy, her son paint all the boats to match the boats on the Pirates of the Caribbean, and it looks amazing. And these are just tiny little boats, so the work he did on that was just amazing. Mine are just have a yellow boat and a blue boat and a red boat, but it's just a neat game. So that's my number 9, Tiny Epic Pirates.
Awesome. Before I start with my number 9, I'm not going to list my honorable mention. We can do that after. But I just have to say that I played a lot of light to medium 2021 games. The heavier ones that I'm interested in, most of them have just come out or have not come out yet, to Canada anyway. I have just received Stardew Valley that I want to delve into. I haven't received Ark Nova yet or Messina 1347. So those are some of the heavier games that I've looked forward to, but I haven't got to play a lot of the heavier ones in 2021 yet. That being said, my number 9 is Terraforming Mars Aries Expedition by Sydney Engelstein, Jacob Frixelius, Nick Little, and yes, just the 3 of them. This one is basically Terraforming Mars, the card game. It's an awesome game. I love it. Some people, they do not like it. They prefer Terraforming Mars, the big game. But I not so much crazy for the area control part of Terraforming Mars. I mean, I do like putting things out on a board, but this one kind of takes that away. So it's just the cards, but you still have your player board, and they're really nice player boards that are in set so that your stuff isn't like rolling around. Also got the player mats, which they don't come with the base game, but those were really nice as well. So those will help you organize all your cards. So how this differs from the main game is you each have a set of cards, and they all have different actions on them, and you will choose one card not blindly, but you'll choose one card and you'll flip it down so no one can see, and then everyone will flip their cards, and you'll see I might have chose the same action as you have, and if I did, then I won't get the bonus action on the bottom. But if nobody else has chosen this action, I will get to do both actions. Everyone else will also get to do one of the actions, but if someone else chose it, you only get to do one of them. So it's kind of neat because you're trying to figure out sort of what people are going to choose, because you don't want to choose the same cards, because then you get more actions, right? Because everyone is gonna, there's a certain order of the actions, and depending who has what, you'll get to go in order and do all those actions. You're still trying to get the heat up to a certain amount and the oxygen up to a certain amount, just like in Terraforming Mars. And you still have your heat production, your plant production, your MEC production. The one nice thing about this is the I think it's the ore production, and I can't think of the name of the other one, but the thing with those is cards that cost those things, you actually don't have to spend them, you just have to have that amount. You do for the MECs the same as the normal game, but those ones will just accumulate and they'll just stay there, so you never lose those big ones. It's kind of neat because you have all these cards out that you're basically building a really cool little engine in front of you with all the cards. And it's just a neat way to play Terraforming Mars, I think. It's my preferable way. That's my number 9, Terraforming Mars Area Expedition.
Yeah, that one's on my wish list. You guys played it at my house at one time, but I was at the other table, so I'm like, oh. And I still haven't played it, so I do want to play that one, so, and possibly buy it. So, and that was your number 9. So my number 8 is Canvas. So this is published by Jeff Shin and Andrew Nurier, and it was published by Asmodee. And this is such a neat game. Like, it's clear cards, so the cards are all transparent except for like a bit of artwork on there. And along the bottom there'll be different kind of like paint splatter that'll have designs on them, or different things. And you have the board, and then you'll put up 5 of them in a row, and you kind of pull them out of the box, and you'll have, those are the different art element that you can add to your painting. And so if you want to take the first one, you can just go ahead and pick the first one. If you want the second or third, then you have to put a little palette, like paint palette, that you would leave behind in order to be able to pick one that's further down. But you start, I believe, with 4 of them, but eventually you may have none. So if you have none, then you have no choice. You got to take the first artwork, but then it might have some on there, so you would get to collect and kind of give you more abilities to pick other art patterns later on. But then they all shift when you take one, so it shifts, filling, and then a new one gets pulled out. And you're collecting these transparent cards, and when you have up to 5, then you have to do a painting. And when you have to do the painting, you have to select 3 of them and layer them in certain ways that's going to create this kind of funky artwork, and it'll give the painting a name. And then the way that you layer it will cover different symbols, possibly. So you're trying to get the different symbols along the bottom to create this pattern. And depending on the scoring options, because you have cards that'll show up how you score each painting. It could be if you have 3 of the same pattern in a row, then you would get a ribbon for your artwork. It could be if you have 4 different patterns or designs or patterns along the bottom, then you would get 1. And it could be if you have a triangle and a circle side by side, then you would get a ribbon for that, but then if you do it twice, then you would get 2 ribbons and so on. So as you do your paintings, you slide these transparent card into the sleeves, you get your painting, you collect the ribbons for what you've scored, and when you've complete your 3rd painting, then you're done, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. It's such a neat game. It looks cool to put on the table. It looks cool to put together. It's fairly simple, but it's basically just a pattern collection, and you're trying to create these patterns score, but so fun. And that's my number 8 canvas.
Such a pretty game too. That was your number 8. My number 8 is Radlands by Daniel Peachnik. This game I've talked about before. This is a 2-player game based in the post-apocalyptic era with really neat artwork. They use like the purples, the pinks, the yellows, the orange, really neat. Anyway, it's a game where you have it's basically just a card game, and you have these 3 camps in front of you, and there's probably about 30 different camps in the game, so it really changes up each time. But you'll each have these 3 camps, and you're just trying to destroy the other player's 3 camps. So in front of these 3 camps, you have 2 spots where you can put people that will help protect your camp and also attack the other camps, possibly. And then you also have these events that you can bring into play. They start into play at the back near your camps, like it's at spot 0, and each round they will slowly move up. And once they get to, I think, spot 3, then they start to attack the other players or camps, depending what they have in front protecting them. The currency in the game is water, which is neat because in order to put these people in play or these events, you're using water, you're paying water, and you do always get at least 3 water at the beginning of each round, but there are cards and water tanks and things that can give you more water so that you can build more cards or hire. I don't think it's actually hiring because you're bribing them with water. That's all you're paying them. But it's really neat. It's a quick game. It could be over in 10 minutes. It could be over in half an hour. Just a really neat back and forth game trying to destroy each other's camps, which I usually don't like those kind of games, but I'm really starting to, just because I can see the strategy in them and being able to, all of a sudden get rid of their whole team in front of them gone. Next round, all I need to do is attack that one camp. They're 2 down and I'm good. Then all of a sudden they come back at you with 2 events that have killed like everything that you had planned to use to attack them. It's really fun. Love it. Radlands, my number 8.
And that's one of the games I bought yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'll have to.
You haven't played it yet?
I haven't played it yet, no.
Yeah,
I punched it. Like, I've opened all the games, punched them all, got them all set up. But, yeah. So that was your number 8. Now, my number 7 is Arch Ravels. It was created by Adam McCrimmon and Jordan Miller, and it was published by XYZ Game Labs. And this one, I saw it. Like, I saw pictures of it. I hadn't seen the Kickstarter thing of it, but when I saw pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's all about knitting. And you have the different yarn and different crochet or knitting project that you put together, and it looks so cool. And like you have like the little bowl, because you can get bowls where you put your yarn in and it loops and pulls the yarn through, like in the crocheting hobby thing. And then that's what you have for bowls, that you can put your little yarn wooden bits in, and so neat. So just the theme alone won me over. I don't crochet and knit tons and tons except at Christmas. December is all about all my projects that I do for gift, right? So when I saw that and it was around that time, I was like, oh, I need this. So I had my local game store bring it in and I played it, and it's cool. Like, you have your board and there's the different actions that you can do. And you can take yarn that's available in like the general grouping area, and depending on what the card has. So it could be, well, you can have a yellow and a purple, or you can have 2 blue or whatever. So you're collecting the yarn and you put that into your little craft bowl. And then you got like the 4 different actions that you can do, and there's different things you can do there. But if you got to move on your next turn, so you can't do the same action twice. So then it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to go here where you're going to craft an item. So I have enough yarn to do mittens, so I'm going to craft the mittens, and then you have mittens now. And you'll have orders like, okay, well, I'm going to go here and I'm going to fill in this order because this person wants mittens and scarves, and I've made mittens and scarves now, so now you can trade in those projects and take in the order, which is going to give you more points. So you get points for the project you've completed, but you get more points for the orders you've fulfilled. And so you're going around collecting the yarn, crafting the projects, fulfilling orders, and moving your little thing back and forth depending on what actions you can do. It's so neat. It's so thematic, like the way that it all looks. It's so pretty. And that's my number 7, Arch Ravels.
Nice. That was your number 7?
Yeah.
My number 7 is Dice Miner by Joshua Debony and Nicola Ristiki. I've talked about this multiple times. It's such a fun little pusher luck game. You're just pulling dice off this mountain, trying to make the most points possible. It's basically like a glorified Yahtzee, I think, almost. Except that the points are so fun because you're trying to get these runs out of just the white dice, the 1 to 5, or you're trying to get, if you happen to have dragons or these little comets, you're trying to get the shield or a shovel, which will make those points positive, whereas if you had none of those, they would all be negative. You also want the little magic blue dice, because those will let you re-roll your dice. Then there's also gems you want to get, and it's just so fun because you, at the end of the round, you just add up your points, and then you're going to shake all those dice and put them in your play area, and those will be added to the next round. It's 3 rounds in a game. Such a fast game, quick, fun, easy, nice, really colorful dice when you each have a little player power. I know you bought this one too.
Yes, I did. I'm so
I hope you like it because I've hyped it up so much.
I just finished watching like the tutorial, and it does look so cool because you gotta collect the dice that are available to you. It says, okay, well, I really want that one, so it looks like it's gonna be neat. Yeah, I can't wait to try it.
It's just simple, easy, but still so fun. That's my number 7, Dice Miner.
Perfect. So for my number 6, I have Meadows. It was created by Clemens Kaliki, and it's published by Asmodee. So with this one here, you have this big board that you have these cards that gets put out. So first you start with east, west, and south. And then on the second half of the game, you'll have the north one as well. And you have these cards, and then each player have these little, almost like flag cardboard tokens that you would fit into the slots along this board to select which card you're going to want to take. And the number on that piece of cardboard is how many cards in you're going to go. So maybe I'll put this one and I'm going to take the 2 cards in because it's a 2. And now I have this 1 card that goes in my hand, and you can play cards. And it's all the symbols that you're trying to match. So maybe you start and you have a worm, and you have something that you would need a bird and a tree, and you're building these different kind of combinations that, okay, well, I have a worm now, and this card will allow me to replace my worm symbol into a bird, so then I can then get this card that's worth more points. So it's kind of neat how you select the cards that you want to add into your hands and what you're going to play, and you want to make sure that, okay, well, I'm going to oh wait, no, I don't want to cover this yet because I have this card that I need this for, so I don't want to cover that symbol. And it's very neat. And then if you can't, like, as the game moves on, then it gets quite cluttered in the board, and there's not so many cards that's available. It's like, well, I really want that card, but all the notch that points to it have been used up. So, but you can use the flag and kind of use the butt area and go into like the little campfire area and then activate a different action, so that maybe you are able to go and get that card you wanted in other ways or do different action. It's just a neat kind of set collection that you're trying to do and build up on these things, and with the symbol you have showing and what's covering, and it's kind of has neat decisions in it. So that's my number 6, Meadows.
Awesome. I love this game. That was your number 6. My number 6 is Boonlake by Alexander Pfister. This is one of the heavier games that I did get think I just got it maybe February. Love and Alexander Pfister's games. They all seem to resonate with me. This one is kind of the best, or sort of his greatest hit so far, because he's kind of combined a lot of his games into this one. So if you've ever played Great Western Trail, you know how there's a bit of a rondel. There is a little bit here as well with your boat. You're moving around this river. Well, I don't know if it's river, stream, more like it. And you'll go 3 rounds kind of around it. The first one is a small loop, and the second one is, I think it goes halfway down, and then that finally goes to the end. But that's not the main part of the game. That's a very small part of the game. The game is structured around this action board, which is really neat. It has these little cardboard pieces that all line up in this player, or this action board, and you're going to choose one of these. Now they all start with playing a card. I shouldn't say all but one of them. So you're going to play this certain type of card from your hand, either building it, so you have to pay to build it, or you're going to give it up for money. So, and it has to be either like a day card, a dusk card, or a night card. And then after that, there's also an action that you can do. But after that, there's another little spot on the card that everybody can do. So every turn, you're going to be able to do something from the action board, because everybody's going to get to do something, which is neat. So you seem to be like taking, I think there's only a certain amount of turns, but you're also going to get a turn from each player as well. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build on this board these little tiles. You're either trying to put cows on these tiles, or people, or houses, and upgrading them to settlements. So there's a bit of an area control on there. And then when you're building your cards, these are all going to either give you multipliers for points at the end of the game. They're going to give you more income, like money income, or possibly card income. Because at the end of each round, you will go through an income phase and you'll get all these things. It has so many things going on in the game. But again, it's such a well-balanced game, I find, because you could really delve into just, putting cows out on the board and trying to get all these cards that are going to give you points for all these cows. Or you could go into just basically building a bunch of settlements on the board, and those will give you multiple points at the end. Lots of different ways to victory in this game. Really neat. I've only played about 4 times so far, but I think it, just like his other games, Great Western Trail, Maracaibo, or some of my favorites from his, the more I play him, the more I sort of learn different strategies and just fall in love with them more. That's my number 6, Boonlake.
Wonderful. Yeah, that one looks good. I'll have to give that one a try sometime. My number 5 is Cascadia. So it was designed by Randy Flynn and published by AEG Games. And Cascadia is really neat. Basically, I would say it's like a dual puzzle game. You're building 2 puzzles at once.
Yeah.
And it starts where you have the different terrain that you put the tiles down for. And you're trying to build these terrain to create the biggest cluster that you can of the one type. So maybe you have the biggest river, and then the large forest all connecting together if you can, and the mountain area, and so on. And you're going to score your largest one, and you score if you have the largest as well from every other player. So you're trying to connect these so that they create big clusters. But they also have symbols on them where you can put some animals onto them as well. But so it might be, okay, I'm going to put the forest here because it creates a nice big clusters, and you can only put a trout or an eagle on this particular space. And you also have these cards. So there's 3 cards for each animal type that scores in different ways. So maybe the fox scores for every grouping of animals that you have. So if there's a pair of bears touching it along the side, then that's going to score. So then be like, okay, I want to put my forest here. Oh, but I really need a second bear there. And that's my last spot. And this wood area doesn't allow me to add a bear there. So maybe I'm not going to like, so the way that you place everything together builds two puzzles, like the bottom one and then the top layer one. So that's interesting as well. And then on your turn, you have to select a tile and a token, an animal token, and you got to draw. They're put together in pairs, and you got to pick a pair that you want. It's like, okay, well, I really wanted the forest, and it has the bear, so that's great, but I was kind of hoping for a bear token, and this one gives me a trout, which, well, I guess I could put the trout there. So it's kind of interesting on how you pick what you're going to select. And then there'll be some areas where it's like, okay, well, there's nothing else that goes there. You have to put a trout. But if you do put a trout on that area, you actually get a pine cone. And then the pine cone allows you to split your choice when you're picking the token and the tile. So now you don't have to take them as a pair. You can kind of split your choice and then take what you want, basically. It's a neat game. Like, it's a very simple game to play. It's not a complicated rules, but putting it all together and trying to maximize your points is very interesting. So that's my number 5, Cascadia.
Good choice. My number 5 is our first crossover. It's Meadow.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, I love this game. Such a pretty game. The animals, I love looking at because there's a little information sheet that you can look up every little animal, and it'll give you a description of it. Because some of them you look at and you're like, I don't even know what that it is. These little forest or like, I guess, meadow animals that some of them we've never heard of them.
They've definitely put a lot of attention to details in this one. Like, the artwork is, and every card is individual, and it has its own art. Like, the time that went into this game is just enormous. Yeah, and you can see it shines. Yeah.
And I know you don't get sucked into the expansions, but this one's coming out with an expansion, and I can't wait. I do get sucked in. Especially if they're games that I love. If something comes out, I usually want it. So yeah, that's my number 5, Meadow.
Number 5. So now we're in number 4. Now, number 4 is a game I've only played once. And we did a game night at the library here in Didsbury, and a friend of mine brought this game, and it's Ankh, God of Egypt. So this is a Eric Lang game, and it's published by Simon Games, and it's like the third of a trilogy. So you had Blood Rage, you had Rising Sun, and now you have this one here. So it's kind of like, it's very thematic, and there's a lot of little miniatures. Or now he had the full-in Kickstarter, and everything was all individually painted, and he had done such an amazing job. Just looking at this game was amazing. And it's an area control game. So you start by placing these different things in your area, and you slowly, like every round, you score what you control, which you have the most area in each of these different areas. Like, there's different many, because that's how
you
many
blanked out
characters
there. We
I have
didn't
here.
hear what
So
you just said.
gain control. Oh, okay. So it's an area control.
There we go.
And the more characters you have in a different region, then you would score that region. And as you progress, you can gain abilities. Each of your gods can start creating different abilities, and you can change it up as you go, and you can make it that, okay, well, I've built some pyramids here and the different buildings there, and then now they're going to do different things as well. It was really interesting. And there's a lot going on with this one, and this was a while ago now. I'd have to kind of review all the rules before I get to play again, but it was neat. And then each player has like their own type of characters that they play as, and it was neat. It was a lot of fun. Area control type game. So that was my number 4, Ankh, God of Egypt.
That one, the production is unreal on that game. I seen that played. That was the day we were at the library there too, right?
Yeah.
All right, that was your number 4. Well, my number 4 is another crossover. It's Cascadia. Yeah, I love this game. I actually just played I started the solo campaign in it, and I played about 5 or 6 games in a row because they're so fast, especially when you're playing solo. You just do all the turns yourself and you try to match or get the best score you can, but there's certain little things you have to meet in order to pass on to the next section. It's fun. But have played this with different groups as well, and it goes over well with everyone. Such a pretty little easy game to play, but really thinky and puzzly. Yeah. Love it. Cascadia, that's my number 4.
Perfect. So my number 3 is Red Rising. And this was published by Alexander Schmidt and Jamie Stegmaier by Stonemaier Games. And this one is so cool. Like, I've played it the one time my friend brought his copy over and we played it, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to want this one. I had heard lots of mixed reviews on it. It's kind of like, oh, I don't know, but it's very interesting because it's one of those games where you can do a lot of different things that's going to score you different points. So you can kind of concentrate a little bit on everything, or you can kind of say, I'm going all in on this one action. I'm going to maximize that and try to get most of my points here and tally up. So there's different areas that you kind of move up the track, and it increases your points the further you go. And what's really interesting is with the cards. So you have so many cards, and the game is going to be different every time because the cards that gets played tends to be the ones that are going to be in play the most. But as you play a different game, you'll have different cards that'll come up. You can play where more cards gets brought in, but it tends to recycle the same cards again and again. And you could be like, okay, well, I have this card and I'm going to play this card under this thing, so it'll activate this ability, but then the card itself kind of changes what's happening with the other cards that was there. So maybe it allows you to remove a card from that row, or it's hard to explain. I'd have to play this one again, but I was so impressed with how it all worked together and how every card interacted depending on what you played, what you did, and then also what you have in your hand at the end of the game. Because at the final scorings, I was like, okay, I'm going to have this, and this is going to give me so many extra points. And then, like, just before the turn ends, they took my card that was allowing me to do all those points, and then I lost it just on the last round. So neat. I really enjoyed this one. This is one that I want to play more and more, but I was so impressed with it. And that's Red Rising, my number 3.
Awesome. Have you played Fantasy Realms?
No.
Okay, so that game, Jamie Stegmaier had said he based it off of Fantasy Realms because he just loved that game. So it's just a simpler version of that game. It's really fun, though. I have it. We'll have to try it sometime. Mm-hmm. Really fast game. Yeah, you'll have to look that one up. All right, my number 3 is Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. Sounds boring, but for people who don't like science, I'm not a big, huge science fan, which is, I don't know how this game appealed to me, but you're basically playing as assistants competing to collect experimental data on pea plants. Sounds interesting, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you're selling me.
It's really fun, though, because what you're doing is there's all these dice in the game, and you're drafting them, trying to adjust these pea plants. So they have all these, like, genes that the dice will portray, right? And you might need a certain type of gene because you have these cards and you're trying to complete these pea plants, and you'll try to, like, if you'll roll the dice and say it has like a 2, it's like the Roman numerals, but then you look at the chart and see which one that applies to, and you might need that one, or you might need one that's like 1 over. So you can use these things to adjust the dice as well, so you can manipulate them. But you're basically just trying to fill all these pea plant recipe things that you'll flip over and then just build new ones. Now you can also go to the garden or not the garden, but you'll go to this place and you'll hire these assistants, which will give you abilities that will help you build more or faster pea plant recipes. You'll try and buy these little chips that will increase the points at the end of the game. If you have, say, certain pea plants of one kind, you'll try to collect as many of those as possible, and then you'll get all these points at the end. You have money, which is really tight, and those will buy certain things at the market. You can't even describe this game because it doesn't sound fun, but the production is so beautiful and it's really fun to play. And the only reason that I ever looked at it was I did see it originally and I thought, oh gosh, no thanks. And then I seen some playthroughs and people talking about it, and they were saying the same thing. Like, it has no business being fun, this game, but it's so fun, and it's hard to even describe. You almost have to go watch a video on this one because it's just a really neat game. Genotype, my number 3.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. So my number 2 is Dice Throne Season 1 Reroll. Now, Dice Throne Season 1's been out for a little while. I fell in love with it. The first time I played the original Season 1, we set up the game, and it was at the Shoebox in Calgary, and it was in their game library. So we set up to play because we were like, well, I could play this one or this one. And he said, well, I would like to play this one or this one. And that was the only one that neither of us had played. So I was like, well, let's try this. And we got playing, and I was a couple of rounds in, and the Shoebox didn't have any copies to sell, but I had seen it at Pandora's Box in Old. So I interrupted the game. I called them up. I said, save me that copy. I'm coming to buy it today. And this is not even a full game in. Like, I was just partially into it, and I could tell right away, this is amazing. So you play as a character, and you have these dice, and you roll the dice to try to activate the different attacks that you have on your board. And you have cards that you can purchase that will upgrade some of those attacks or manipulate the dice, or it'll do different things. And each character play differently, and they have their own sets of tokens that you can either collect or give to other players, different abilities, and it's so neat. And then with the reroll one, they did it as the battle chest one, so you have this big case of a box, and you open it, and you have all these beautiful trays that holds each character, and there's 8 characters, so they added 2 more characters in the reroll one, so you now have the ninja and the treant. And every time we play with the treant, everybody at the table calls it Groot because it's a tree, right? But it's so fun. Like, I'm a huge Dice Throne fan. I've talked about Dice Throne lots. And this is just a reroll where they've republished it to match that season 2. So you have the trifold board that opens up. So you have the middle, you get the full artwork. Because Manny Tremblay, I believe, is the artist that did this one. This one is done by Nat Chatelier and Manny Tremblay, and the artwork is amazing, and the gameplay is amazing, and it's published by Roxy Games, so it's a local game. So I've attended and hosted a few. Yeah, I can hear your dog. I've done a few tournaments with this one. So neat, such an amazing game. So that's my number 2, Dice Throne Season 1 Reroll.
Awesome. My number 2 is Caper Europe by Une Rubio. I think that's how you say it. I've talked about this one before too. This is one of the Kickstarters that I backed last year. Finally came in after Christmas, and we've played a lot since then. It's a 2-player game, card game again, and you have this board in front of you, and you are placing thieves down and items and different things to try and win the favor of these 3 locations if you possibly can. That's not the only way to win the game, but you're also trying to collect these priceless items that you can collect with those and get points depending how you play your cards. You, in each area of each location, you can multiply your points that way. It's a really fast game, and it comes with 4 different areas: Barcelona, London, Paris, I believe, and there's one more. So you can change up the game each time, and it's just such a fun game. I didn't know that I would like it this much, but such a fun, quick game that you can play probably in 20 minutes, I would say. That's Caper Europe, my number 2.
Wonderful. So we're number one. So my number one game of 2021 so far is Chronicle of Crime 1900. This one was designed by David Clarell and Jeepers Wojciech Kraszkowski, and it's published by Lucky Duck Games. Now, I'm a huge Chronicle of Crime fan. I love the whodunit. And I love that in my books and my movies and my board games, apparently. And they have the 1900 is a standalone. And it's just kind of plays the exact same way, where you have the main board, a crime is happening, you get called in, you go on site, it's app driven as well. So once you're on site, you have on your phone and you look around, you move your phone around to look at what you notice, and you're calling out everything you see so the other person can pull the cards. And it's like, okay, well, there's food on the ground there. There's like ripped up paper over here. There's clothing on the floor. And then so you pull any cards that might match. And then afterwards, they'll look at the scene, see if they notice anything different. Then you can go and scan each of these items. And they'll be like, no, you look into that. That was nothing. It's like, oh, actually, these papers were some sort of document. So now that gets added into your clues. And you kind of collect all the clues and you develop the story with it. And then you can kind of go and talk to, somebody was on the scene and discovered. So you can go and talk to them. So you scan the character card, so you're in conversation with them, and you can scan all these other things you've come across or these other characters to ask the person you're in conversation with about this. So it's like, okay, well, I'm talking to you, but what can you tell me about the papers we found, or what can you tell me about the murder victim, or all these different things. And in the 1900s, it just kind of takes place in that era, and you actually are a journalist, and your uncle is part of the police force, and he kind of oftenly calls you in on these different things to kind of try to solve the crime, and you're trying to put the story together. And I just simply adore this series. Chronicle of Crime is like my most favorite game, or one of my most favorite game. I've played it with Lee a couple times, and I was like, oh my God, this was so amazing. And he's like, yeah, it was okay. And I was like, I don't understand how he can't love it like I do. And now I was like, okay, well, I don't want to waste them on you.
Yeah.
So I just bought yesterday the 2400 one that just came out. So, and I still have the Noir. Like I said, I don't do expansions. Yeah, except for this.
That one. I have the Noir too, but we haven't tried it yet. Have you tried it?
No, I don't have it.
Okay.
So the Noir, I don't have the red view or the river view.
Red view. Yep.
Yeah, I don't have that one, but I have the 1400, the 1900, and the 2400 now. So.
Okay, so you've tried the regular, 14, and 19. Which is your favorite out of those so far?
Yeah, you know what? I don't have a favorite. I love them all. They just have different, the 1400 is more geared towards like the olden days, and it's kind of like the stories more takes place in the historical, like more so than the 1900s. But you have vision in this one, like you kind of will have vision that will give you clues. The 1900s kind of like has that you're a reporter side of things, so it kind of gives it a different spin a little bit, but it plays the same. So
it's more like nowadays-ish.
Well, that one would be more like Murdoch mystery era, kind of, right? Like, so, like there's telegraph, probably, stuff like that, but it's not modern technology, and you're kind of going around trying to piece the story together. So it just adds a whole different feel to the story, but it's still a murder mystery. I love them. I love them so much. So that's my number one, Chronicle of Crimes, 1900.
Awesome. So with the 2400, you have the complete collection now, right?
Well, now I need but yes. Yeah.
Except for, that one expansion.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so I'm really happy. I went there because I bought it yesterday when I was at the Wizards Loft, because I had seen that they had posted. I was like, okay, if I see that one. I went there and I said,
you could have told me. I could have picked it up for you.
That's too easy. No, but okay, I went there and I said, okay, I'm not going to look up any game.
Oh, right.
So if it's a game, I'd be like, oh, I haven't heard of that one. I'm not even looking at it. I'm just looking at games that I know I want. And I was like, oh, I want that one. Oh, that one. Oh, Radland, yeah. And then it's like, oh, 2400, okay. And it's like, I'm stacking my hands and I'm like, can I start a pile?
And it's so hard when they're only like $25. You're like,
oh, they're so cheap.
That's like buying a book, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So
that's
it's like,
how I prove myself. I'm like, okay, these are like my books, except that I read them over and over and over and over.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, no, it's a good investment. Board games are great investments.
Oh, I think so too.
But yeah,
awesome.
So then that was my number one.
Nice. I have the original with the Noir, which I haven't played the Noir, but I can't find people to play this with. Like, I like it, but, you know, I might have to pull it out with John again and see with the new one, or the expansion, if he likes it. But I really like it. Anyway, my number one is Kingdomino Origins. I've talked about this one before. This one's from Bruno Cathala. I love my tile games, and I love this one. It's very medium-ish weight, light to medium-ish weight, but out of the three, because this is the third in the trilogy, there was Kingdomino, then there was Queendomino, and now there's Kingdomino Origins. This one adds some resources to it, and in the basic game, I mean, you're just tile laying dominoes basically, but on these domino tiles are just different types of terrain which you're trying to match up, and not just match up, try to have some crowns. Well, in this one they're not crowns. This one they're like little fire things that you're trying to have so that they'll multiply the size of your areas that you're building. The resources in this also add to it. And then there's also another part of the game, because it comes with 3 different, games basically. You can start with the base game in this, and then the second one you can add the resources, and the third one you add the resources and these little people that you can buy and put on your tiles that will multiply points again. So it just sort of adds complexity each game that you play. And so it's really neat because this could replace them all, because the base game in this you could play with anyone. It's like a gateway game. And then as you go up with the games, it's more for maybe more people, like gamers, that like a little more complexity in their game. But just a fun tile laying game that I get to the table so much, because sometimes randomly my daughter will be like, okay, let's play a game. I have half an hour. And I'm like, oh no, you didn't prepare me. I didn't think of what to play. So I'll grab this off the shelf because I know we can get this done in a half an hour or so. But I just love it. That's my number one, Kingdomino Origins.
Number one. Hey, I knew you liked this one, but number one material.
Yeah.
I'll have to try it.
I think it's the tile part of it. I just love placing tiles, matching them up, all that kind of thing.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's it for our 2021 games. I could easily do another 9 games in this one, but be interesting because I know there's probably about at least a dozen that I haven't played yet that I don't have, but now that there's conventions coming up, we have like a whole bunch. Wait. We might get to play a bunch of these. We might have to revisit this near the end of the year, and
there you go. Yeah,
might have a different list. But yeah, so that's this week. Now next week we are gonna talk about deck building games. Now yes. I know you love deck building.
That's the genre I love. It just seems to be there's a deck building, that's good. So,
I'm starting to really like. I love it in like bigger games where it's just a part of the game, but I'm really starting to like it as a main mechanic as well. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So where can we find you, Melanie?
So you can find me on Instagram as boardgame_mama. I also have my YouTube channel that is Boardgame Mama. And my Facebook page is Didsbury and Area is playing all the games. And how about you, Carla? Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram, Board Game Specialist, all one word, and have a web or a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. That's where you can find me. Now, so we will visit deck building next week. It's going to be super interesting. Can't wait for that one.
That's right. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So until then, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.